Welcome everyone to the Open webinars. This topic is going to be about adding and removing tasks in the active passive and active iSCSI failover. So we're going to be going over some very simple topics that I think that's an interesting thing that some engineers, they want to be able to create a downtime or do maintenance, and we'll talk about that, why you'd want to add and remove tasks and for the iSCSI volumes. So we're going to look at the first thing we are going to do is check the volume replication and look at its synchronization status. And we're going to verify that the iSCSI targets and IDs and LUNs are the same. The reason why we go over this is because sometimes people need to understand how the iSCSI works in failover, so we'll just address that real briefly. And then we're going to add the targets to the iSCSI resources and also remove them. So let's get right into it. Let's bring up my two DSS systems. I have right here node A on the top bar, you'll see here, and node B. And right now we'll go right into node A. So let's just take a quick glance of what is it to remove iSCSI targets or the resources out of failover and why. If we scroll on down, let me give everybody a short view. Here's what you're going to look at after you configure your failover. And we have many videos on how to do this, so it's quite simple. If we scroll down into the setup failover configuration area, where we're going to be looking at is the resource pool manager. At first you're going to see the virtual IP addresses, and then what you want to do is go right into the iSCSI resources. Now here I have already an iSCSI target in my resource. It's already used in the cluster, and I can remove this. So the only thing is I caution you on is when you remove an iSCSI resource, okay, and your virtual machines are on it, you'll be disconnected. So you really want to be careful in knowing what virtual machines, what initiators are connected to that target. You don't want to disrupt any services. And you can also verify who's actually connected to those resources. You can go into maintenance and connections and verify what connections you have here. Right now I don't have anyone connected, but you could verify to see who is connected to that resource and to that target. And also for other iSCSI targets if you're not using the failover. Alright, so let's go back into setup and failover. And as you see, I have on the local node, which is my node A up here in the tab, because I define the best way to define in a failover is I like to call them node A and node B. That way, if you notice my target naming, this is node A, which would refer to that this is the source target for node A. If I were to move that over to node B, and let's say node A drops down logically or physically for whatever reason, you have a failover or actually the server crashes, then you know when you're on node B, you see that naming convention can help you out, and you know that belongs to node A as the source. So if we look at node A would be on this target 0 in configuration, iSCSI target manager. We'll go to targets. And here we go to target 0. I know that this logical volume, LV00, is my source. So that's why it's really good to have a good naming convention. All right, let's go back. I'll go back to setup failover. And so now if I want to remove that target for whatever reasons, let's say I'm doing maintenance, I know no one's connected to it, so I'm safe to remove it out of the cluster. So once you click on it, and you can have multiples that you could take away as well, you just click on the left button here and then hit apply. Now what's going to happen is that yes, you won't be able to access this target, i.e. being with your virtual IP address that you established in your cluster failover, but you can still access the target using another IP address that's on the DSS. So it doesn't mean that it's totally gone. It just means that you're not going to be able to access it through the virtual IP address that you've assigned. Now one of the things that's going to happen when you do this, in case you wonder, is that we're going to be in a degraded state. Because right now we're working in an active solution. So right now there's not any load balancing happening for this server. So ultimately you're going to get this running in degraded state. So what would happen if I remove node B from its resources? Well, let's find out. But overall you're going to have the same comment that's up on the top that's going to be in a degraded mode. So here I can again add and remove on node B, its resources. I don't have to go to node B because I can control from what's known as the remote node here on one node, so I don't have to go back and forth, which makes the jobs real easy. So we can just remove the resources and apply. So now I have all my resources removed, and thus allowing me to do maintenance schedules, or if I wanted to, and I've already backed up the data from those targets, then I can go ahead and delete them. But to delete them, you have to remove the tasks associated with them. So we get a lot of questions about how do I, if I want to remove an iSCSI target, what's with the gray space that you get? And I'll show you real quickly. So let's say you wanted to remove it and you wanted to delete it, and you go into the volume manager and then in volume groups, and we go to this volume group that I have already established, and we know that on node A there was a source volume LV00, and you have a gray space here. So what you have to do, you cannot remove it, you cannot delete it unless you remove the replication task associated with it, and or if there's other tasks associated, including if the target is still enabled. So you would have to go in configuration, iSCSI target manager, and in targets, then go to that target 0 and detach it. And then once you detach it, then you can go ahead, we'll just leave it on for right now, but you would detach it, and then you can go back into configuration, volume manager, and volume groups, and then go to VG00. And then you would have to take off the replication feature that's assigned. Also, if there was a snapshot or any other associated task with it. To do that, it's very simple. You just click down here in the action pull-down menu, and you go to LV000, that one that you want to modify, remove the volume replication task, hit apply, and also delete the task in the volume replication. Thus, this will allow you to delete or remove that logical volume. So let's put them back, and then let's put a new one, a new task that I've created to simplify things. Let's go back into the failover. Remember, we're going to add the targets back in. And again, as you notice, the naming is really important because node A, if I know this is source, another way you can verify that this belongs to node A is if I go into configuration, volume manager, and volume replication. Here I see that once it populates, give it a second. So here I see LV00 is the source, and I have others that are in a source. It could be many, and LV002, which is a source. So let's go ahead and put back and add our resources. We're still running the cluster, but the targets aren't available. So we'll put back A, node A, target 0, and then we'll go on our remote node, and we'll add its resources back. And on the node B, that target is also going to be the source. So for example, if I go to node B, configuration, volume manager, volume replication, we know that on this target that I have, let's wait till it populates, this on LV001 is the source that I will be using for node B. So let's go back to node A. We're already established. That task has been added. And we'll go and add on the remote node, as you see down here on the bottom. And it's always on the bottom. The remote node is always on the bottom. The local node is always on the top. So you can always reference them to both of them. So here we'll go add on the node B, target 1, and apply. So now watch the state once this task has been put into the resource pool for the remote node. It's also its source, and then we'll go up to the top of the screen and you'll see how it updates itself to being out of degraded state. There's a lot of things that go on, by the way. This is where they're checking. There's mechanisms in the DSS for the auto failover where it checks is it the replicated volume in a perfect state, the naming, the SCSI ID. So it's doing a lot of verification. Is it target settings, such as maybe the max burst length may be off, it'll create an error and let you know. So let's go up to the top. And here we say now it's coming back to a running status of OK. So it's good. So what happens if you want to create a new task and you want to add into it? Well, it's similar the same way. I've already created one, and I just want to go over for everyone's point of view. I basically created a terabyte iSCSI volume terabyte right here, and I added for the replication. So as it populates, so they must be equal on both sides. So both nodes need to be equal. If I was a 1 meg off, it won't replicate. So I've enabled replication for this iSCSI volume. Now I'm going to go to volume replication, and it'll be this volume here, which is LV002, and I placed it in source mode. And I also created its naming convention, so I named it OECE. Here is LV002 going to the destination node B volume LV005. And I also know that I want to check the status to see if the task is completed replicating. So in status task, you want to click in there and then go into this running task and verify that it's synchronized. So you want to make sure that it's consistent to consistent for the source and destination. Once that's done, then I want to verify and create my target. Very simply, you just go to Configuration, iSCSI, Target Manager, and then Targets. Now you will have to do this on both the DSSs. So I've created a target name called, the alias is OECE, but the target name is going to be my own assignment. So here, again, naming it really helps. Here I just named it node-A, which is my server name, node-A. And this tells me that this node owns that target, and it's in source, so it's really helpful. So usually you want to just copy this and copy the alias name and go to your other node, node B, and make sure that it has the same target naming convention. So if we go here, we'll go to node B, configuration, iSCSI, target manager, targets. Here I named it the same. You want to keep them the same. I have the OECE, which is the same, so you want to match it. And also you want to make sure that it also has the same target name, which I do have. So if that's wrong, if it's off a bit, a character, the cluster will give you an error message and say can't add it because there's a misnaming match on the other node. You also want to make sure that the SCSI IDs are the same and the LUN numbers are the same. So once you have your volumes the same size, your target names the same size, your SCSI IDs matching, and your LUNs matching, then pretty much, and you're synchronized completely 100%, you're ready for the next step. Here we'll just go to Setup, Failover, and I'm even in Node B, I can do this at. But we'll just make it simple, just to let you know that you can do it from Node B. You want to add resources, remember you want to go to the remote node, which would be node A. So here you could see that I can add and remove targets for node A. But let's just keep it simple. So let's go back to node A because I like to keep things in a chronological order. So I want to do things on node A for node A because the source volume is on node A that the task is running that I want for. So here we go to the local node, add or remove our targets, and here we have the target name that we want to add. So this would be the target 2, and we hit apply. So now I'm adding a task on the fly that I can use immediately once it gets updated for my resources, and then your initiators could connect to that target using the virtual IP addresses. And that's how simple it is. So I hope that helps you to add and remove resources and targets. Here they're being listed. You can get the information, and I can always add additional tasks to the resource pool, and it's very helpful to know, especially for maintenance. One last little tip here is if I ever wanted to move these over to node B, this is very simple, and you can also do this in the active passive environment. So if I wanted to move all these tasks and resources over to node B, I can do so. So here I'm on node A. I'm going to move them over to node B because I want to, let's say, take down node A and I want to do a maintenance, add more memory, add another network card. You could do this really easy, and it's very helpful. Also, if you wanted to update the systems, you move the resources over to the other node so I can restart this system, and all your I/O and writes can still continue to be written on the other node. So as you see now, the resources on node B he is now able to, what we will see here on node B is those targets and those volume replication tasks. You'll notice that now they're in source mode where they previously weren't. So what if you look here, I'm going to move the resources back to node A. So let's say the system's back up, and you're going to see that they'll change their position. So here we want to move back to local node. So we're going to pull them back from the node B and put them back to their original position. So you'll see a status moving in progress, then you'll get an OK. And then once that verifies the synchronized, the data between, then it says resources were moved successfully right here. Now let's go take it back on to node B, and now you see that their positions would put back into their original destination point. So that's the uniqueness of the cluster failover. So I hope that helps everybody on how to add and remove targets into the resource pools. So it's a very valuable and unique feature to have to be able to do maintenance, downtime, or you want to be able to remove that iSCSI volume for good. That's it for everyone. Just basically make sure that you're updated to the latest release. There's a new official release coming out either this week or next week. We will know after our QA has blessed it off, so it'll be the next version past the build 8826. Have a great day. See you next time. Bye-bye.